Welcome to Unfiltered Reflections. I'm your host, Passion, and today we're journeying into the quiet, often overlooked spaces where the truest measures of a life are taken. We'll explore the subtle architecture of human connection, the invisible threads that bind us, and the profound weight of a promise whispered not just with words, but with every passing breath. In a world that often shouts its demands and flaunts its fleeting triumphs, we're going to listen for the steady, unyielding hum of something far more enduring. Our story unfolds in a city that had long ago forgotten the color of its own sky. Not literally, of course, but metaphorically. The towering, monolithic structures of the megacorporations, their data streams pulsing like artificial veins, had cast a permanent pallor over everything. The air, thick with the exhaust of automated transports and the scent of synthetic nutrient paste, hummed with a low, constant thrum, the sound of progress, they called it. Individuality was a commodity, curated and sold, and genuine emotion, well, that was largely considered inefficient. In this sprawling, chrome and glass labyrinth lived a man named Kale. Kale was an archivist, not of dusty old books, mind you, but of digital memories. His job in one of the lower-tier data centers was to sift through the endless streams of personal data, the curated social feeds, the biometric logs, the purchase histories of citizens who had either passed on or simply opted out of the relentless public gaze. He categorized, cross-referenced, and occasionally, when the system flagged an anomaly, he would delve deeper, searching for patterns, for connections that defied the algorithmic logic. It was a lonely job, filled with the echoes of lives lived, yet never truly experienced by him. Kale himself was unremarkable by the city's standards. He didn't possess the sleek, augmented limbs of the corporate elite, nor the vibrant, custom-designed clothing of the creative class. His apartment, a sterile cube in a massive residential block, was furnished with standard-issue utilitarian pieces. His meals were nutrient-paced, his entertainment pre-approved data streams. He moved through the city like a ghost, observing, cataloging, but rarely participating. He had, it seemed, learned to blend into the hum, to become part of the background noise. But Kale harbored a secret, a quiet rebellion against the city's relentless efficiency. In the deepest recesses of his data drive, carefully encrypted and hidden from the omnipresent surveillance, he kept a collection of unfiltered memories. Not the sanitized public versions, but the raw, unedited moments of human experience he sometimes stumbled upon in his work. A child's unbridled laughter, the tear-streaked face of a lover's farewell, the quiet satisfaction of a craftsman admiring his finished work. These were the anomalies that spoke to him, the glitches in the system that hinted at a deeper reality. One evening, while sifting through the archived data of a recently deceased citizen, a woman named Alara, Kale found an anomaly that stopped him cold. Alara, according to her public profile, had been a mid-level analyst, a model citizen, efficient and compliant. Her social feed was perfectly curated. Professional achievements, tastefully filtered images of approved leisure activities, polite interactions. But hidden deep within a forgotten corner of her personal cloud, a subfolder marked only with a single abstract symbol, Kale found something else entirely. It was a trove of unprocessed sensory data, raw audio recordings of birdsong from a forgotten nature reserve, unedited video clips of rain falling on leaves, high-resolution scans of botanical illustrations, and most strikingly, a series of deeply personal, uncaptioned holographic journals. These weren't for public consumption. These were for her, and perhaps for someone else. As Kale began to explore, a different Alara emerged. Not the efficient analyst, but a woman with a profound, almost desperate love for the natural world, a world the city had long since paved over and forgotten. Her journals spoke of secret visits to the city's last remaining green spaces, tiny, neglected parks that were slated for demolition, where she would spend hours documenting the struggle of a single wildflower pushing through concrete, or the intricate dance of insects around a dewdrop. She spoke of the quiet ache in her soul for beauty, for connection, for something real. And then Kale found him. A man named Silas. Silas appeared in Alara's journals with increasing frequency. He wasn't part of the city's elite. He was a maintenance worker, responsible for the vast subterranean network of pipes and conduits that kept the city functioning. His hands were calloused, his uniform perpetually smudged with grease. Yet, in Alara's holograms, his eyes held a startling warmth, a depth that belied his humble station. Their connection wasn't explosive or dramatic. It was built in stolen moments, in the hushed quiet of those forgotten parks, under the pale glow of the city's perpetual artificial twilight. Alara would bring her botanical sketches. Silas would bring a small, carefully polished stone he'd found in the subterranean tunnels. They would sit, sometimes for hours, simply sharing the quiet. He didn't try to solve her longing for nature. He simply listened, absorbing her words, seeing the world through her eyes. She, in turn, found a quiet strength in his presence, a grounding force in his steady, unwavering gaze. One entry, a holographic recording, showed them by the edge of a small, struggling pond in one of the forgotten parks. Alara was visibly upset. The city had announced plans to finally demolish this last patch of green to make way for another data center. Her voice, usually so precise, was trembling. "It's all going away, Silas," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Everything I cherish, everything that feels real, they're just erasing it." Silas didn't offer empty platitudes. He simply took her hand, his calloused fingers wrapping around hers. He looked at the muddy water of the pond, then back at her. "Alara," he said, his voice low and steady, "the world outside might change. They might build over everything. But what's inside you, what you see and feel that's yours," and he squeezed her hand gently, "I'll be here, to see it with you, always." It wasn't a grand declaration of love, not in the way the city's entertainment streams portrayed it. There were no soaring orchestral scores, no dramatic embraces. It was something far more profound. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a promise woven into the fabric of their shared understanding. Kale, observing this scene from the sterile confines of his archive, felt an unfamiliar ache in his chest. He had seen countless love stories in his work, meticulously documented relationships, algorithmically matched partners, public displays of affection designed for optimal social engagement. But this felt different. It felt real. As the weeks turned into months, Kale continued to follow Alara and Silas's story through the archived data. He saw how Silas, despite his long shifts and the demanding nature of his work, always found time for Alara. He would bring her small illicit gifts, a single, surprisingly resilient weed he'd found growing in a crack in the pavement, a piece of iridescent metal from a discarded pipe that caught the light just so. He never tried to change her, never dismissed her longing for a world that was vanishing. He simply was there, a constant, grounding presence. And Alara, in turn, blossomed under this quiet attention. Her journals, though still tinged with melancholy, also began to show moments of profound joy. She started creating art again, not for public display, but for herself and for Silas. She painted miniature landscapes on discarded circuit boards, tiny oases of green in a digital desert. Silas would watch her, his expression a mixture of awe and quiet contentment. He wasn't an art critic. He didn't understand the nuances of her technique, but he understood the soul behind it. He understood her. Then came the day the demolition was scheduled for the last park. Alara was distraught, almost inconsolable. Silas, however, had a plan. He had used his access to the city's subterranean network, his knowledge of forgotten passages and disused service tunnels, to find a tiny, hidden alcove deep beneath the city. It was a forgotten maintenance chamber, damp and dark, but hidden from all surveillance. He spent weeks secretly transforming it. He brought in soil, scavenged from construction sites, mixed with nutrient-rich compost he somehow acquired. He smuggled in seeds, tiny packets of hope he had meticulously collected from Alara's dying park. He installed a rudimentary hydroponic system powered by a jury-rigged connection to a discarded energy conduit. It was a monumental effort, a defiance of the city's very nature. On the day of the demolition, as the city's massive machines began to tear at the last vestiges of green, Silas took Alara's hand. "Come with me," he said, his voice holding a hint of excitement she hadn't heard in a long time. He led her through a labyrinth of service tunnels, past the rumbling sounds of destruction above, deeper and deeper into the earth. When he finally opened a hidden panel, revealing a small, glowing chamber, Alara gasped. Inside, under the soft, artificial light of the hydroponic system, was a tiny, vibrant garden. A single, struggling rosebush bloomed defiantly in a corner. Herbs grew in neat rows, their scent a startling, intoxicating contrast to the sterile air of the city. It was a secret world, a living sanctuary built just for her. Alara wept, but these were tears of profound gratitude, of a joy so pure it felt almost painful in its intensity. She turned to Silas, her eyes shining. You did this?" Silas simply smiled, that quiet, steady smile. "I promised I'd be here to see it with you," he said, gesturing to the tiny garden. "And this is a part of it, a part of us." Cale, watching this holographic recording in his archive, felt a tremor run through him. He saw the enormity of Silas's effort, the quiet determination, the relentless focus on Alara's needs, her dreams, her very being. This wasn't about grand gestures or public accolades. It was about something deeper, something that resonated with the forgotten, unfiltered memories in his own hidden drive. He continued to follow their story for years, long after Alara's public profile had been archived, and Silas's traces became harder to find in the city's official records. They lived out their lives in that hidden garden, a secret world beneath the city's relentless hum. Alara continued to paint, her canvases now filled with the vibrant life of their subterranean sanctuary. Silas, when not working his demanding shifts, tended the garden, his hands once stained with grease, now also fragrant with soil and growing things. Their life wasn't without its challenges. The hydroponic system would sometimes fail, requiring Silas to work tirelessly to repair it. The city's surveillance occasionally brushed close to their hidden world, forcing them into periods of tense, watchful quiet. But through it all, Cale saw the constant, unwavering thread that connected them. Silas never wavered. He never complained about the extra work, the risks, the sacrifices. He simply did. He was the bedrock upon which Alara's fragile world was built. One day, Cale found a final entry in Alara's archived journals. It was a handwritten note, scanned and digitized, placed deliberately in a folder marked for Silas. It was written in a shaky hand, clearly from her later years. "My dearest Silas," it read, "the city outside has long forgotten the taste of real rain, the scent of damp earth. But here, in our secret world, you have kept it alive for me. You have kept me alive. You never promised me a perfect world, only that you would be here to see it with me. And you have. Every single day. You built me a garden when the world outside tried to pave over my soul. You held my hand when my memories began to fade, and you spoke to me of the blue bird, reminding me of the promise we made. You never left, even when the person I was began to change. You saw past the fading colors, past the blurring edges, and you saw me. And for that, my love, there are no words, only gratitude, as boundless as the sky you helped me remember." Cale closed the holographic journal. He sat in the sterile silence of his archive, the hum of the city a distant drone. He thought of the corporate executives with their vast wealth and transient connections. He thought of the social influencers with their curated lives and fleeting admiration. He thought of the city's relentless pursuit of efficiency, of optimized interactions, of disposable relationships. And then he thought of Silas, a maintenance worker, living a quiet, almost invisible life, who had, with his steady hand and unwavering spirit, built an entire world for the woman he loved. He hadn't sought fame or fortune or even recognition. His actions were not for an audience, but for one person, and for the deep, unspoken agreement that bound them. Cale looked at the last line of Alara's letter again. "You never left, even when the person I was began to change." He understood then. He understood the true measure of a man. It wasn't about what you owned, or what titles you held, or how many people knew your name. It was about the quiet, relentless, unyielding act of fidelity. It was about the strength to stand by someone, not just when it was easy or convenient, or when they were at their best, but through the fading colors, through the blurring edges, through all the changes that life inevitably brings. It was about seeing the soul and holding on to it, no matter what. If you've enjoyed this episode, please visit our website at Deszicakes.com. Thanks for joining me on Unfiltered Reflection. Until next time, be kind to yourself, keep exploring, and remember, you are worthy. You are seen, and you are loved.